Good Saturday morning, Newstalk ZB. It is Fishing with Crimpy.
And I'd like to say a special thanks for the two young lads for coming in so early in the morning and sharing their thoughts on fishing. You've just been listening to young Daniel Crimp about what it's like to catch a kingfish, and also his buddy James Sterling Barclay, named after the great Sterling Moss.
Yeah. He was just telling us actually during the ad break that his mum wanted to call him Sterling.
Yeah.
But she lost.
Oh, she came a close second. That happens. That's a good family. I like that. Well balanced.
Yeah. Look, we were talking kingies, and that was my first kingfish trip out with you and Daniel. It was an excellent adventure. So what's the best way if you're trawling for kingies? How
I really thought on that day that I was going to get you blooded. I thought it was going to...
So did I. I was disappointed. I went
bit of
home.
Favouritism there.
I cried all afternoon.
Nepotism. I had to give the boy his first crack at it.
Of course.
But that's trolling, eh? You know, sometimes, bang, you can hit them. You can get 3, 4, 5 in a row. Sometimes you get none. It's not my favourite way of targeting kingfish because I don't believe it's the most effective way. But when they're around in schools like they are at the moment with lots of rats and lots of mid-sized, lots of big-sized kingies, it is a pleasant way to do it because there's no bait. And James's mum would love coming out with me because there's no smelly fingers.
Yep.
The thing is, there's no right or wrong way to do it, but there are some bullet points that will help you hopefully gain success. One is I always like to troll a minimum of 4 lures out the back because it creates a pattern and it gives you more chance of eliciting a strike response. Kingies are pack hunters. They hunt in packs, they're predators, they like plenty of noise and plenty of action. So the first thing is crank your motor up so that it's frothing the surface. This tends to represent a school of bait fish. Second thing to do is stagger your lures back. So I have one lure running just below the surface in the prop wash, so just about 2 or 3 metres back from the back of the boat. Because you'll find if you observe it and you watch long enough, kingies will come right up under the prop and swing outside of the stern of the boat. So they are really aggressive. The second thing I do is I make sure I have at least one deep diver. So you can get a bib lure like a Rapala or some of the knockoff copies, and they dive down to about 10 metres. And then the last 2 lures, just pick whatever you want and vary them. Rule of thumb is on dull days use dull coloured lures, bright days use bright lures. The ones that Daniel and Anna were hooking their kingies up were a garish orange lure.
Right.
And everybody else is saying that, you know, the blue Rapala is the one to go with. Well, it's only the one to go with because years ago when we started the radio show, we plugged it relentlessly and it's become urban myth that is what catches kingies.
Ah, well, there you go.
And it does catch them, but so do a lot of other things.
I'd love to hook onto a decent-sized kingy, but
Stick with me, boy. Stick with me.
I'll take
you, boy. Yeah.
Well, the majority of my fishing was surf casting off the West Coast, of course, you know, and I've told you on the show I was brought up as a small boy on the West Coast.
Yeah, and remained a small boy.
Just got wider. But yeah, it was surf casting, and we would hook snapper.
So what's the biggest snapper you've caught?
Probably a 20-pounder off the 20-pounder straight out of Buddha's hole.
Well, speaking of your dad, how's he getting on these days? Still walk funny?
Yeah, but it's a waddle.
He always had a waddle. Nothing to do with fishing.
It's not fair. I'm only saying that because he lives in Australia now and he'll never hear this and heard us. But yeah, that was a good fish. That was straight off North Beach there in a place named Buddha's Hole after my father.
Yeah.
But that was a good fish. What about yours? What about your snapper?
Well, the biggest one that I've weighed was around 23 on the rod, 26 and a half on the set line. But I did catch one down Sissy Bay once that got up along the side of the boat, and it was enormous. It was probably 4 or 5 axe handles through the shoulder.
Wow.
And didn't fit the net. So I actually straddled it and rode it back to Sissy Bay, and it actually bucked me in the shallows, so we never actually got to weigh it. But the oldest one...
You're a true fisherman, aren't you?
I am. I've been around a long time. I've got salt in the veins. The biggest snapper, or the oldest snapper that's actually been aged in Nelson was 84 years old.
How do you age a snapper?
With the otolith bone. That's the ear bones. They've got little... And they take them out.
Yeah.
And they bake them in an oven. And then they put them in resin, in a resin block, and then they cut it in half, cut it through like cutting a tree trunk.
Oh, right.
And then they can count the rings. And they get a lot of information from that. They can tell how quickly it grew in its early stages, because like all young things, they grow rapidly to start with. They can tell when it's had bad winters and bad summers and areas of prolific growth. It's quite fascinating when you look at them. I got 2 20-pound snappers once. I've told the story before. A kilometre apart, and one was both 20-pound. One was 34 years old, and the other one was 17. Wow. So a big snapper is not necessarily an old snapper. Don't forget, we've got our text to win competition.
That's right.
Grab a copy of the fishing paper. It's in there, or visit us on Facebook or check us out online.
We'll see you next week.
We will indeed. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.